Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mundane Matt. And we live in a weird time right now where it always feels like there's a constant assault on free speech. Someone makes a bad joke, they lose their job or their livelihood, and people always seem to be relatively okay with this. Not everybody. I myself am very much an advocate for free speech across the board, and I feel that if you are truly offended by something, that is more about you than it is about the person who made the quote-unquote offensive comment. And oftentimes people tend to judge their take on the law over, well, their feelings on a situation. And it's not necessarily aimed at any one person or any one group. That is kind of how we all are. I think oftentimes we do act from a gut instinct or a gut reaction to something, and maybe it responds before our brain has time to maybe fully process or comprehend that. And as we continue to talk about these things from a feels over reals perspective, it only further separates the divide and coming back to some kind of logical consciousness about a particular issue. But on the subject of offending speech, okay, at least in free speech, many people out there, will come back with the counter argument. When someone says there's an assault on free speech, they'll say, well, the government is what can't get you for free speech. Right? The government can't take away your right to speak. They can't come after you. It doesn't apply to private businesses or private entities. And that is very much true. But when we start putting into place hate speech laws or something along those lines, isn't that essentially the government coming after your speech? So even though, again, the counter argument to that is, well, the government doesn't protect against hate speech. But that, again, is also in the eyes of the beholder. And that it's hard to quantify that, which kind of brings us to this particular situation happening over in Virginia, where you've got the Virginia Supreme Court ruling that students can be suspended if they offend transgendered peers. The title is definitely inflammatory, and I think it's meant to kind of drive home a point, but I don't think it's necessarily as bad as they're making it to be right now. But let's go through this here. Okay, so the Virginia Supreme Court knocked down a challenge to a school board policy that added gender identity and gender expression discrimination to the student handbook with little parental involvement. So a student by the name of Jack Doe and his parents sued Fairfax County Public Schools last year, saying that the new protected categories weren't defined, and Jack could be suspended for saying or doing anything that potentially offended a transgender peer, which is a valid concern. How many times have you seen people online make those claims? Like, if you make a bad joke, someone be like, you're offending me, you're triggering me, I'm so angry. They get worked up and they get so mad over it. And then you have to remind them, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. To which case the response back is, words are violence. No, sticks and stones against your body is violence. Words are something you can walk the fuck away from. But people don't tend to think like that anymore. And as we've kind of got wrapped up in the whole identity politics issue, and now that it's moving into states issues, it becomes a lot more convoluted and a lot harder to break down. And so the school board policy also lets students use restrooms and locker rooms based on their gender identity, meaning Jack could be punished for asking a female student why she was in his locker room. And that, again, I think that's a valid question. If you don't know the law, or if you're not too sure what's going on, some people move to a new state, maybe not know everything just yet, and they see a woman in the men's room, and clearly it's a woman who looks like a woman. They go, what are you doing here? Right? And then, she goes, oh, well, I'm here to change my clothes. I gender identify as a male. But since so many people out there, in terms of those who like to push identity politics, let's say through YouTube, like to run on the whole notion of that gender is fluid, meaning one day you're a male, one day you're a female, it all kind of makes it go up in the fucking air. Right? Again, it's such a hard thing to determine, because people could, in fact, sit there and go into the women's room. A dude could go into the women's room and flat out say, well, today I my breasts are painful. I think I'm getting my faux period or some shit like that. And they could use that as a legit argument, because South Park made fun of this too. South Park made fun of this too in a way that I really think kind of brought home a lot of it. And then Cartman started being a transgender as a way to get his own bathroom. And everything else that Cartman was doing kind of made fun of these particular scenarios. And those of us who pay attention to the identity politics situation going on out there, we see this kind of stuff happening, and most of us just kind of keep shaking our heads like, we're totally fine with what you want to identify as, but when you start bringing like this, I don't know, when it gets to the situation of where someone could ask a question and it could be perceived the wrong way, and that person then loses their ability to learn, they get suspended, they get in trouble. It really starts going down that really slippery slope of the government taking away your right to free speech, or anything else like that. Now, the High Court ruled that Jack and his parents didn't have a standing to sue because he hasn't been punished yet, and it's not even clear he currently shares facilities with a transgender student. Now, this to me is an important part of the particular of the ruling, because I do think it does actually kind of make sense for why the Supreme Court in Virginia ruled the way that it did. They said here, we are left with Jack's bald assertion of fear of discipline without any alleged predicate facts to form the basis of such a fear. While we do not reach the question of what must be pled to establish an actual controversy, the injury pled here is insufficient because general distress over a general policy does not alone allege injury sufficient for standing, even in a declaratory judgment action. I guess in layman's terms, he hasn't been put in a situation where he's been offended for making a joke or making a comment to a transgendered peer. Therefore, which I understand why they ruled the way that they did in this particular regard. But here's the thing. They're ruling in favor of the transgender teens on behalf of them being like, maybe one day they'll be offended, essentially, right? They're trying to keep them from being offended one day is what I'm trying to say. And here they're going, well, the person hasn't been punished for offending them, so we can't really judge on it yet. So they're taking one side of it, but not the other side of it. And that, again, I find this to be a little bit hypocritical. The court said that if Jack became aggrieved, if he was punished for offending a transgender peer, he could exercise a private right of action against the school board within 30 days of the action. So they're basically giving him an out, right? Which, again, this might then again be an issue, because now if this information goes wide to the school systems inside Virginia, a transgender person in the men's locker room or whatever, the boys' locker room, might then become a target for harassment in order for this particular private right of action to happen. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I could see that being like a legitimate fear that it might. So it's one of those things where it's like, again, it's kind of like the extreme answer to something is to kind of put someone in a position to get in trouble so then they can fight it through the Supreme Court of Virginia in order to try to disprove the initial ruling in the first place. It's convoluted as fuck, and we should have never really let it get to this point. Now, personally, look, here's the thing. Trans people totally fucking exist. They're going to use the bathrooms or the locker rooms of their preferred identity, whether we want them to or not, whether you want them to or not. I don't really give much of a shit. Me personally, whenever I use a bathroom, I'm always in the stall anyway. I just think, you know what? We're kind of headed down that path to begin with. You might as well just fucking rip out all urinals, put everything as a stall, and then let everyone just kind of do their thing. I think it's going to be perfectly fucking fine. But the family's lawyer did say that the 30-day rule would give carte blanche to schools to approve illegal policies during the summer break. Which is an interesting take on this because, during the summer break, not a lot of students are there, and then they could make that happen. I get that. And so it's interesting to see what might happen with this. Well, it does real quick, though. It does say here that Virginia follows the Dillon rule, which requires local non-discrimination laws not to be more stringent than the state law. The state law does not include sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. Neither the Circuit Court nor the Supreme Court reached a decision concerning the merits of this policy, and neither issued any opinion on the ability of the local school board to enact such policies that are plainly inconsistent with state law. And I think ultimately that's what this particular suit is about. It's that it feels like these particular rulings are going against state law. And that has been right now a huge issue when it comes to trans people using the bathroom. Like the North Carolina trans bathroom bill that was causing a lot of fucking shit, and everything else. And I understand where both sides are coming from. I do. I fully understand where both sides are coming from. You have the transgendered community that just wants to use the fucking bathroom that they identify as, which, again, I don't give a shit about because they're going to do it anyway. And we all know they're going to fucking do it. And oftentimes you're not able to really tell a trans person from a person who is cis anyway. I mean, sometimes you are, let's be fair. I don't think that's a fair thing to say you're never able to. I mean, I think you are. But ultimately, you know, unless you're looking directly at it, no one is really going to pay attention. Most people keep their eyes down and they walk to the fucking urinal or stall when they're in the bathroom, and they just kind of keep to themselves while they're doing their potty business. And on the other side, though, you've got the people that are trying to feel like this is going to open it up for like sexual predators to go into bathrooms, and that it's going to attack children. And that's happened before. It happened in Idaho last year at a Target dressing room or changing room. There was a transgendered woman there who was videotaping and taking pictures of a young girl in the next stall. So these things have happened before. So there is, I would argue, probably like a legitimate fear in terms of how the people on the anti side of this law or this policy are taking it. But then again, just at the same time, these people are also looking at it like this particular, you know, Fairfax school district ruling or this policy is not in line with state policy, and therefore it's going above and beyond and could lead to larger problems. And I think that is ultimately what is being argued here, and I get that. And the fact that the Supreme Court's like, well, no one's been punished for this thing yet, so we can't accurately rule or pass judgment on it because no one's been punished, I think is kind of dumb. I think they could pass ruling on it, whether they are for or against it. To say that, well, no one's been punished for this crime yet, so we can't determine whether or not it's legit, is pretty fucking ridiculous. And it really, to me, it shows that they had no real interest in addressing this issue head on. And it kind of feels like they just kind of went, well, this is a way for us to argue out of it without ever having to actually address it. So when someone gets in trouble, then come back to us and we'll talk. But what that might then do, as I said before, is then push people to start trying to get themselves in trouble in order to then take this back to the Supreme Court to get them to rule on it, which is a really, 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 really fucked up way of doing it. And they should ultimately just like try to get everyone involved, like a town hall within the school district or something, to come together and to talk about these issues as a whole, and maybe come to some kind of understanding. Because I feel, myself personally, I feel that you are better able to come to an understanding with a person of which you have disagreements with if you are face to face, or, you know, at least talking with them, whether it's through the phone or through the, you know, through like VoIP or Skype or whatever, because then you get to connect with them on more of a human level, and it really does remove away a lot of the stigma that we might be feeling from people just reading stuff in a text post on an article or on a Facebook post that is clearly biased and full of hyperbole. Doesn't matter what side of the coin you are. And then it puts a human element in the room, and that human element that changes things. That changes like the discussion, and that can move mountains for the positive. And that's, I don't know, like maybe I'm all over the place here. Maybe I'm too much of a dirty fucking hippie, or just maybe an idealist to believe that this could ever be accomplished, but it's something that I truly would like to see be accomplished one day. And I hope we can all find a middle ground. And when it comes to the bathroom issue, like I said before, just make it everything fucking gender neutral. Who gives a shit? Because we're all there to poop or piss in fucking private. Just take out fucking urinals, put in the goddamn stalls. You know what? And fellas, just aim. That's the other side of that too. And that's just as a guy, I fucking hate it when people don't aim on the goddamn toilet seat. But that's a whole argument for a whole other fucking day. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the video. If you guys want to support the channel, social media is the best way to do so. Share it around, talk about it, get in on the conversation. Support me through Patreon. Check out MundaneChats. Check out 3 Buck Theater. Subscribe, like, comment, engage with Mundane Matt here on the YouTubes. Thanks, guys.